Hello and welcome to 2 Pints of Maggots and a Packet of Hooks, the fishing podcast. You are in for another absolute treat on this episode. It's a little bit strange at the minute. I'm getting the sense of autumn in the air. We're towards the end of summer when we should be thinking about still big white venues and the fish having that little bit of a munch before the autumn comes, but there's definitely a chill in the air. But there's no chill in the air on this podcast. In fact, in the big chair for the big chat, we've got Darran Bickerton. And Darran, as many of you will know, is captain of the magnificent Starlets team and also is a coach for the England team, beginning his coaching career on the international stage around 2016 when he took control of the Dutch side for the International Fishermania. And Darran tells us all about that and how that then led onto coaching and essentially working alongside all the management of the international team with the under-23s at the time, and now developing, ready for his jaunt over to Italy for the 2021 World Championship and the senior side. So Darran has a fascinating story of how he developed his fishing career and how he's now into that captaincy role, management role, if you like, assistant manager, coaching. So a really, really interesting chat with Darran. It was brilliant, really was. Of course, we've got the press pack where we'll look at the monthly magazines, those that are available to me, of course, the weekly magazines, so Angling Times, and social media. There's been loads of stuff that I've picked up on as I've been scanning around on the social media side of things as well. So we'll look into that. Tackle shed, as always, I'll cast my eye over anything that has caught it and see if there's any useful bargains that you might want to pick up as well. So without further ado, let's get cracking with the press pack. Okay, let's take a look then in the press pack. This is the part of the show where we get to look at the printed press and we also have a little look at social media and see what's been going on in the world of usually match fishing. But if there's any standout catches that I've seen in the papers or online, I'll point them out as well. But to be honest, on this episode, it is pretty much match fishing because we've had some big events. So the first thing I want to cover off, I think, is the World Feeder Championships, which happened a week or so ago. We do talk about this in the big chat with Darran Bickerton as well, and he'll give his thoughts on international fishing abroad and what it takes to compete. And what's happened really with the England feeder team is that they were given the all clear to travel to France pretty much about 2 or 3 days before practice was due to begin. And that was due to a change in the COVID regulations allowing the team to go over. But what that did mean, of course, was that it did impact on the preparation side. Not that I'm sure that the lads didn't have all the gear ready just in case, but mentally as well as, the physical preparation. To cut a long story short, for those of you that don't know, the team finished 7th out of 15, way, way, way off the pace. I think on day one, we're looking at something like 31 points. Day two, 37 points. So the Belgians that won, just to put that into context, had 36 points over the 2 days. So, England were way off the pace. And according to team manager Dean Barlow, he doesn't believe that the techniques and tackle were wrong, but the feeding. And again, I asked Darran in the big chat, which you'll hear shortly, around the continental knowledge and nous. And he gives some interesting thoughts on how he approaches his ground bait mixes and how he looks at preparing and making sure that he's got consistent components into the mix as well. But I'm quoting here as well in the Angling Times this week, but team manager Dean Ball is incredibly honest. He says, we've got 12 months to prepare for the 2022 event in Ukraine, and I'm going all out to set up events or matches against the likes of France, Belgium and Holland, simply to give us the experience of fishing abroad and seeing the baits and feeding that they use. It's no use to keep fishing the likes of Barst and lakes every weekend, as we'll learn nothing. What he's saying is these big natural waters on the continent are nothing like what we've got here, and we need more events that enable the guys to compete with these European nations. So really interesting and really honest. But what I did find actually, I wasn't that shocked, to be fair, but again, it's this what I was bemused about was the the negativity online. There was a lot of comments to the feeder anglers that, you know, they weren't performing, should have done this, should have done that. Who these people are that are making these comments, I'm not sure. Just genuinely don't understand it. It's not as if the guys didn't try. It's not as if they, you know, didn't give their all. The preparation wasn't great, and they've held their hands up and said, look, you know, we wasn't good enough. Well, what more can you ask? You know, they've got to improve. But to carry on online with the negativity, it's a little bit like on the last show when, you know, with Lee Wright a couple of episodes ago, and I highlighted the negativity towards the Fishermania final, which we then discussed personally with Harry on the last show. So I just don't get it. I really don't. And it's just, I guess it's the world that we live in. And I guess it swings and roundabouts because social media allows, you know, the little people like myself to put something like this together for you guys. But at the same time, it also gives a platform for those that are possibly, you know, a little bit more outspoken online than they would be face to face. So, yeah, real shame for the England feeder team, but onwards and upwards, I say. Now, another big event, of course, that's taken place recently was the Division 1 National. And that took place on the Grand Union Canal. And a great example of the little guys beating the big guys. David and Goliath, if you like. Sensas Devizes being a relatively small town down in Wiltshire. Toppled a lot. They came out on top on the Grand Union Canal with a really good score. It was a close top 5 or 6 actually, but overall they're 301 points, and that was more than enough to beat Barnsley, the famous Barnsley Blacks, into second place with 286. Really close behind then, just 2 points was Starlets, Darran's team, and then a local team of mine from my days back in Manchester, Tricast Rochdale, and fantastic on 283 points in fourth place. And then the famous, as they're known now, the Cadence Super Team, or it used to be the old Shakespeare Super Team, were in fifth with 283 points as well, but on a slightly less weight advantage. So really tight at the top for the top 5 spots. It's good to see. It's good to see a lesser known team, you know, coming out on top. And I guess the one thing we want to see then is that by winning the Division 1, you normally get to fish the World Club Championships the following year. I hope they get the backing and support of their sponsors, or, you know, some finances to get across and represent England in that. So, yeah, well done to the Sensas Devices match group. So they are the two big events recently, I guess, with the Division 1 National and the England team going abroad. We have got the England, if you want to call them, the float fishing team now, the traditional team, if you want to call them that as well. Those guys are going out next Wednesday, and that's Wednesday the 1st of September, over to Italy. And I talked to Darran about that in the press pack as well, so you can have a listen to how the guys go about preparing for that. It's a interesting squad this year. It's a mixture of experience and youth, which is great, and it gives us a good chance to give some of the lads another chance of global action. So that's brilliant as well. Okay. Yeah, so I mean, going through this week's Angling Times, there's some good catches. The standard barbel, there's some big perch, nice roach, etc. There's a focus on the new series of Whitehouse and Mortimer ghost fishing, which is great. It's won awards. I'm sure it's attracted countless new people into the sport, which is what we want. And of course, it does highlight that, you know, fishing isn't always about catching fish in some respects. So yeah, and it gives a synopsis of where they are each episode. It's good. They go from the Hebrides right the way through to my neck of the woods, Burley House, Lake District, Norfolk Broads, Wales, and also they go fishing for Zander on the Severn. So that's the series. One thing, actually, speaking of TV programs, I did pick up on. I've started watching. It was on Channel 5, Celebrities Go Fishing, something along those lines. And essentially it's the likes of, it kicks off with Ian Botham, Linford Christie, Les Dennis, Fern Britton, and Rosemary Schrager. And at first I thought, I don't know how this is going to go, how this is going to end. Is it going to end well? And actually there was a comedy value because Les Dennis is a disaster on the bank. He falls in and his life jacket blows up and all sorts of bits and pieces. So there's a comedy element there. There's obviously an educational piece. It talks about the area they're fishing. It's all based in Scotland, starting across on the east coast, moving west. And it's actually really interesting. Although, again, they're not catching many fish. they're definitely promoting the sport. They're talking about that solitude. They're talking about the addiction of fishing, being at one with nature, and all the things that we love, going fishing. And of course, to get a celebrity who you might not necessarily put down as an angler. I mean, Ian Botham's fished many times, but the rest of the guys promoting the benefits of fishing, it's got to be good for the sport as always. Okay, onto the magazines. Couple of standout features into this month's Improve Your Course Fishing. So that is episode 380. Lots and lots of good stuff as always. I've mentioned in the past that I'm always impressed with Improve Your Course Fishing. It's not what you think it'd be. If you are a match angler and you turn your nose up at Improve Your Course Fishing, I promise you will learn something. But there was two simple articles. Page 51, have a crack at a canal right now. And when I read this, as always, when I read canal articles and features, it always takes me back to being a kid where I started fishing on a local canal. It's not somewhere I'd certainly fish nowadays. Definitely a bit rough and ready, but there are many, many miles of, unspoilt canals and waterways, lots of fish holding stretches, that is for sure. And it just reminded me there's an underwater scene pointing out the near side shelf, the central tracks, the far shelf, how to approach, when to switch swims. And it's just a double pager. And it just reminded me of, why not? After seeing this, it's given me a little bit of a kick up the backside, and I really do want to approach some of the canals in this area, or at least the drains. I'm surrounded by drains. They're fishing well. A lot of them wind through various little towns and villages, and you wouldn't necessarily think they had got fish in there, but I know they have. And reading this canal piece has just given me that. It's wet my whistle, shall we say. And then the next page over is called The Rig That Never Tangles. Our good old mate Nick Speed, he is on Dam Flask Reservoir. And if you cast your minds back, regular listeners, to the Nick Speed podcast where he sits in the big chair, he talks about how he began fishing, and Dam Flask Reservoir was one of those places that holds many memories. And he says a similar thing in this. But what he does do is he highlights an open end feeder tactic, essentially, with a boom and a little trick with some silicone that stops that rig spinning and, of course, tangling in up to 25 feet of water. So it's well worth a read for that. If you are, getting back into your open water feeder fishing, or you fancy having a little bit of a dabble, but you're not too sure how to approach these big open waters, this is something that's definitely worth a read. He talks about shock leaders and using braid, not something I'd ever done in my life. So I'd have to take a step back and work out, how would I do that? But he puts it all, as always, as Nick always does, he puts it in a logical manner. And of course, Tony has written it up perfectly as well. So that's well worth a read. That's Improve Your Course Fishing. Over to Match Fishing this month, or the August edition, the one with Jamie Hughes on the front. I'm not going to go into this. As always, there's loads of good content, loads of thought-provoking articles. Match fishing can be a little bit samey, and I'm not ashamed or afraid to say that, to be honest. There are a lot of features month on month where things are very, very similar to, it's just a different person saying it. So when an article or a feature comes along that really captures my imagination, I sit up and notice, and I really read it intently. And this is a classic one. Our good old friend Darran Cox, and he's on page 54. It's called I Predict a Riot. That's the name of the feature, which is perfect for this example. And he's fishing a pole in a weir-pool for big fish. And there is an absolutely stunning shot. I remember he posted it on social media as well. Page 56, an 11-pound 8-ounce barbel caught on the pole. And the way that the photographer's taken that picture is simply stunning. It really is. But it's just something different. It's out of the norm. It's something you wouldn't necessarily imagine doing. I certainly wouldn't think about fishing a pole in a weir-pool for fish of that stamp, but that's the whole point of the article. And it's interesting that it is in match fishing, because I'm not too sure there are many pegs on river matches that you'd have the chance to fish a pole like that, but that's the thought-provoking side of it. So well done for that article. I really enjoyed it. Darren's got a cracking net of fish. There's sort of half a dozen barbel and chub there, topped off with that big double figure fish. So superb. I love that, and that was great. One more article, a few pages in, 66, paste fishing. I'm a big fan. It's something that I love to do in the summertime. I've probably not done it as much as I normally would this summer because I've been mixing it up a little bit on rivers and stuff. But commercial wise, certainly from depending on the water temperature, but in general, anything above 16 degrees or so, pace will begin to work. And this is Sean Cameron is on Holcroft, which we know is a real tricky commercial anyway. And he fishes it different to me. Everybody has their own way of doing that. But there's a few tips and tricks in here. Again, it's a similar way to how I've described pace fishing, is to not be afraid of it. It's a really simple tactic. There's a few tips and tricks in here that he offers up that are quite interesting in terms of utilising the juice from a can of hemp to make your paste, putting hemp into pressing it into the paste so it stays on the bottom, and avoids any fish taking on the drop. So again, lots of thought-provoking pieces in there. Take a look at that also. Okay, so we've covered there a couple of articles that caught my eye in the printed press, and of course we've discussed the England feeder team as well. So let's delve a little bit further and have a chat with Darran Bickerton and ask him about that England feeder team and ask him what it's all about being involved with the England setup. So let's begin with the big chat.
Teddy Fisher Baits specialise in the manufacture of fishing ground bait and additives. We combine a 40-year-old proven fish catching recipe and the experience of our skilled team. Fishing is an adventure, and here at Teddy Fisher, we strive to make that adventure a success. Go to www.teddyfisher.co.uk to see our full range of baits.
Hello and welcome to the Big Chat. And on this episode, we have got the captain of legendary Starlets team and also the assistant manager and coach for the England team. What this guy doesn't know about fishing could be written on the back of a postage stamp. We've got none other than Mr. Darran Bickerton. How are you, sir?
I'm okay, thank you. It's lovely to speak to you.
No, the pleasure's all mine, Darran. Absolutely, thanks for joining me. It was a chance encounter, really, from you and I when I asked you to join us on the podcast when we were due next to each other on the wonderful River Soar not too long ago, and I think ended up last on the match. So it was it was one of those days for me, and no, I'm glad that you can take the time out. I know you're a busy man, and we'll talk about this in a little bit more detail later on, because I know you're heading off with the England squad soon as well, so we can chat about that later on. But before we get cracking, we do have a bit of a theme to these big chats to the podcast. We have a past, present, and future sort of, I guess, conversation piece to give us a bit of a flow. So before we get stuck into these England escapades that you're going to be going off shortly and how you're involved with that international setup, how did the fishing start for you, Darran? How did you get into it? Was it out with your dad or with your mates, or was it just something you fell into?
Yeah, my dad was always a big fisherman. He used to be the captain of the Derby Angling Association national team. Wow. And he also ran a club from Rolls-Royce where he worked and where I still work. It was called TriStar Angling Club. I used to go on a lot of the club matches with them. When I was maybe 10, 11, something like that. But I did fish with him before then when I was maybe 6, 7, something like that. We always used to go on holiday to the Norfolk Broads, and we used to stop on a chalet on the banks at Potter Iron, on the banks of the Fern or the Bure. I don't even know what river it is. We used to catch some eels, and that was it really. That's how I started, with club fishing.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, it's probably my favourite section of all my podcast is that we tend to start in this format, like I say, and it's always interesting how some of these what we'd call top or elite anglers, whatever we want to categorise people in, is how they all had different upbringings and the way to get into it. But I guess the common denominator is always a dad or an uncle or a friend of the family, and it's really interesting. And then in the club scene, what was it? Junior matches first, and then intermediates and adults, or was you just straight in the deep end with the adults?
Oh no. Well, with the club match, the club scene, it was just the adults. There was probably a couple of us younger ones, family members that used to go. In them days, it was coach trips. We used to go on like the River Welland, the River Witham, the Grey Twos. All these trips, swing tipping for Bream. And I live in Derby on the banks of the Upper Trent and the River Derwent. We didn't used to fish so much in matches, but a lot of pleasure fishing, and there was a big junior scene as well in Derby.
Yeah,
we used to fish the national championships all over. The local clubs used to run junior matches. We used to have weekend leagues, evening leagues. The local clubs at the time were like the Derby Angling Association and the Earl of Allington Angling Club, who won the Derwent. And there was matches for juniors and encouragement and coaching, to make us better and improve us.
And was that something that your dad was instrumental in with running the club? Was he one for promoting juniors through and trying to get youngsters involved?
Oh yes, my dad actually was. He used to run the Derby Angling Association match section for juniors and intermediates. Okay. Even when I was maybe in my mid-20s, my brother, he's 10 years younger than me. He was still fishing when my dad was coaching, and my dad was coaching when he was. He'd left the junior scene.
Yeah. No, it's interesting, and the reason why I ask is because obviously when we start talking a little bit about the international side of things, is your foray into that was with the youth team. So obviously going back to when you was a youngster and that development piece, it just shows how important that is, that you get that grounding, I guess. So do you remember your first match win as a junior?
Yes, I do actually. It was actually a club match with the TriStar Angling Club on the River Trent at Trent Lock.
Okay.
It was late in the year, maybe October time, and the river was up, maybe carrying 2 feet of water. And I remember I caught a bream, £2.7 it was, the bream, and I had a few bleak, and I weighed £2.9 in total. And I was like laying on with maggots, in about 10 foot of water. And to be fair, in them days, a 2.5 pound ream was a good fish on the River Trent. There's lots of them.
Lots of them now,
in the river, but in them days we didn't catch so many. It was mainly roach and chub and dace. But I can always remember that bream.
It's funny, isn't it? Because I think then, when we go back a little bit, I imagine the river was probably a bit more coloured with a bit of, not quite as clean as it is nowadays. So you'd think the bream would thrive, wouldn't you?
Well, you would. All the rivers were coloured in them days, and at the end of a match, you'd have all the sediment on your nets. You used to have to wash your nets off. Even if you couldn't really see it, but your net was covered at the end of the day. And it all changed in the 90s with the Clean Rivers campaign.
Yeah.
And the rivers got hard then when it was very clear. But nowadays they're making a big comeback, better than ever, I think.
I think so as well. What would you say is your favourite river?
Oh, well, I would always say the River Derwent, to be honest. I don't fish so many matches on it, but if I ever went pleasure fishing, it would be the River Derwent. It's a magnificent venue. The stretch I use is run by the Earl of Allington Angling Club, but there's the specimen fish. There's like £10 bream, £4 chub, £4 perch, £6 chub, £15 barbel, and lots of carp and big trout, 5, 6, £7. And
it's not a water I've ever fished.
Magnificent. Oh, well, they've got their own website if you want to ever have a look at it.
I'll have a little look. Earl of Allington Angling, it's one of those few. I think the Derwent and the Dove two waters that have always been on the bucket list, but I've never forayed over.
Yeah, well, the River Dove is very local to me, and I have never ever fished it.
Is that right?
Which is amazing, yeah. And I drive over it regular, but I've never actually wet a line on it.
Oh, you're going to have to break that duck at some point, I think. That sounds fab. With the rivers, and obviously the naturals, coming through on these junior ranks with Derby and moving through intermediates and whatnot. Do you remember fishing any junior nationals?
Oh, yes, yeah, junior and intermediate nationals. I can't remember many venues. I remember us winning.
I was going to say, any success?
A couple of intermediate nationals for sure. Yeah, I think I can't remember the venue. Oh, a local one, the Trentmen Mersey Canal. Yeah,
good venue, perfect, great venue for that size of match as well. You know, we're coming through with the juniors and the intermediates, and where I'm leading with this really is team fishing. Okay, because when we talk about Starlets, and I said this to Lee on one of the previous podcasts, and when we spoke about the three big clubs, we talk about Barnsley, we talk about Dorking, and we talk about Starlets. So how did we end up in Starlets? How did we make our way from a junior to an intermediate with Derby and this, I suppose, East Midlands to Starlets, which are more of a West Midlands club team?
Yeah, well, when I first started in team fishing, you know, we used to have local leagues, and I used to fish with. We used to have a team called Team Roachpole, which was
good name.
That was the name of the local angling store, Roachpole 82. But I used to fish with good anglers. Sean Ashby, he was in my team. Nathan Hughes, that's Cameron Hughes' father. Yeah. You know, and Mark Warren, who's a really good angler, and Jonathan Kiley. And then we went to Derby Angling Association. You know, we used to fish nationals with them and super leagues, winter leagues. We had some success. And this is in, it must be the 80s, the mid to late 80s.
Yeah.
And I joined Trentmen in 1991, I think it was, because we used to fish against Trentmen in all the winter super leagues, and Sundridge used to run them in them days, teams of 8. And it was an honour to join Trentmen.
Yeah, very good team.
And the first year I was with them, to be honest, we did win the Trent National. Ted Stokes was the team captain. Steve Clark, he was the vice captain, who later moved on to the captain till about mid. I can't remember. What year did I say I joined? 1992. Yeah. And I think I took over the captaincy in about 95, 96.
Okay.
And the first year that I was captain, we actually won the Winter League final on the Trent Embankment.
Yes.
Which was a big achievement. I mean, it's our local river. You know,
so this was 95, you say?
I think it was 96 or 97.
So I seem to remember we had a team up north, the Saints, that did very well around that time on the Trent Embankment as well. So I think it might have been around that time, yeah. Yeah,
because we used to know a lot of the Saints anglers and the Highfield anglers, because we often used to fish on the Bridgewater Canal against them, you know, in Manchester on like Winter League semi-finals. You know, and we used to enjoy quite a bit of success on there as a team, Trentmen.
That's interesting. So that captaincy piece, how did that come around?
Well, the captain at the time, he was like losing a bit of interest, and to be honest, I think there was no one else to take it on, and I had been the captain of the Derby AA team, you know, so it was just natural progression, you know, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But I really enjoyed my time with Trentmen as being captain.
Yeah.
You know, it was
good success.
It was. We won quite a few national medals as well. We started as Trentmen in Division 5. and we progressed to Division 1 in 5 years. You know, because we're quite promoted every year, and we won 2 or 3.
Fantastic.
We won a Trent National as well.
And how does it come with? You got pressure there, like you say, it's your own water in some respects. How do you cope with the pressure with that? Do you put a lot of practice in, or do you leave the anglers to sort of use give them a little? How does that work?
Well, to be honest with pressure, I mean, I thrive on pressure. I love it, and you know, but with team matches, you do have to practice, and the more effort you put in, the more reward that you will get.
Yeah,
you know, it doesn't come easy. You know, and for some teams it does come easier than others. But no matter how big you are, you must put time in. You know, and prepare. You know, preparation is a really big thing. Even now for me, you know, I do a lot of preparing. You know, when I'm not actually fishing.
Of course, yeah, making sure you've got everything covered. You're not just going to expect your anglers to turn up and sort of smash it on the day on a river that has moods. As great as the Trent is, it can be moody. You know, weather conditions change on the day. Everything can be different. All the pressure. So that's great. So from that Trentmen piece, good success. You know, consecutive promotions, couple of national wins. Does Starlets then come and knock in, or does it? I was asked to join Starlets. It was difficult for me, you know, because I've been with Trentmen for such a long time. There was a Trent National coming up when I joined Starlets. So I thought, yeah, why not? You know, if you want to improve, you know, and I was like nearly 40 then as well, in 2010. And I did join, and we trained hard for that year's Trent National. And we actually won that as well. You know, so I got 3 Trent national winners. I was going to say,
3 gold medals with 3 different teams.
Tell you what, that's some going. Would anybody else have something like that?
I don't know, to be honest. I don't really keep a lot of records or anything, you know. But I suppose that is a proud thing, isn't it?
I think so.
Winning any national is a big thing.
What about individually? Have you ever been on a national where you've had the green light, where the captain or yourself, when you've been looking after a team, you've drawn somewhere where you can win it individually?
Well, in team fishing, for me, the team is always the most important thing. You know, whether it's you know, your local club team or Starlets or even international fishing, the team is the most important. I did actually once win my section and come 4th or 5th individual on a national on the Trent-Mersey Canal when I was fishing for Derby AA. That was in about 1990. You know, I think I had about 5 or 6 kilo of chub or something like that.
Nice. On a canal. Lovely.
Yeah.
And the reason why I ask you this is, and we'll get a little bit, we'll debate a little bit here now as well, is some people would say that, you know, team fishing is a dying part of the sport, or is that it's, you know, it's not as popular as it used to be. And I don't agree with that personally. And the numbers by the Angling Trust given recently explain, you know, they're thinking of opening up Division 3 again. I know we had 6 divisions at one point, and then obviously we're down to 2 now. But and the only reason why I know that is because the only national I ever fished when I was a kid was Division 6. So that's how I know her. It was a long time ago. Thinking of now expanding out to 3. So, you know, team fishing is buoying back. It's just maybe in a slightly different manner. Perhaps we haven't got those big 10 and 12-man team events we used to have, but there's lots of little 4-man competitions, 6-man, 8-man, little sort of leagues here, there, and everywhere. So I think it is buoyant, but I'm thinking that perhaps these big money commercial events, like your Fishermanias, like your Match This, to some extent Riverfest as well, is that perhaps detracting the attention away from team fishing? What would you say?
Well, what you've got to remember, when the national championships first started, there was only one match, the All England. So everyone wanted to fish that before they went down in the divisions. But now you've got your float fishing nationals or any method nationals. You've got the feeder fishing national championship. You've got a commercial national championship. You've still got the juniors, the ladies, I think it's called the veterans national. So there is a lot of national championships, and probably there's more people that actually fish a national now than ever. But I don't know the numbers. But yes, there is a lot of other things now that people concentrate on. There's Fishing Mania, there's Riverfest, there's local leagues, and there is so many commercial fisheries now. Yeah. Years ago, 20 or 30 years ago, there'd be a match where there might be 100 people on it on the River Trent or on the canal. But now there's them 100 people that split over, say, 10 venues with another 100 people. There's probably more anglers match fishing on a lot of different venues, doing a lot of different styles. Feeder fishing is really big now as well. And you've got your commercials, and river fishing is really coming back. Natural water fishing these last few years, people absolutely love it.
I agree.
Some people have probably fell out with commercials. I mean, I love commercials. I fish commercials all winter, but mainly on silverfish competitions, and that is getting really big. There's just so much variety now. There's so many different venues, and there's a lot of anglers out there. That's all split up into different venues. And you can't knock people who want to fish rivers, or just want to fish commercials, or just want to fish for carp. Whatever you enjoy, that is the main thing, and that's why we do go match fishing, because we enjoy it.
I agree, and I think that's all it is. I think it's just that the sport is fragmented. I don't think there's any detraction away from the numbers. I don't think team fishing is in decline. It's just in a different format. And as you rightly say, the emergence of feeder fishing, which is massive on some of these, feeder master qualifiers and whatnot, they're 60, 70 peggers. It's just that there's different things. The only problem is for somebody like me who likes a bit of a dabble on everything, I'm a bit of a jack of all trades and definitely a master of none, is that I end up with a shed full of gear for here, there and everywhere, and on the day I always forget something because I kept it in my bag from the last time we're on a river, or I didn't pick it up from my commercial kit or whatever. But that's great. The variety is brilliant, and it's now obviously yourself. Although you just said commercials in winter and whatnot, you would say you are a natural angler, if you like, which gives way to these great things like your Starlets and the like, because nationals are, apart from the commercial one, on natural venues. Yeah. So what would you say your preference is? Still water, running water, canals, drains?
Do you know, I love everything. I do like rivers, and I do like canals, and I like the still waters in the winter. But what you must remember is until probably from the advent of commercials, I loved it. I loved carp fishing. I'd go carp fishing every week on commercial matches, float fishing for them, waggler fishing, method feeder fishing. I used to go to Cudmore every Saturday and Sunday if I hadn't got a team match for possibly 10 years.
So when was this? This is sort of mid-90s through to mid-noughties sort of thing?
Oh, yeah. Before the mid-90s, early 90s. Yeah. I used to go to Cudmore. We used to chase Camasan points.
Of course.
You used to have 20 points for
final,
to get to the final. And I did that quite a few times. It spread all over the country. They had one at Morelands Farm that I fished. They've had a few at Gold Valley. I did actually win both of them. We've had them on the River Trent as well. All over River Avon, to be honest, at Twyford Farm. It weren't just on commercial venues, the final was. But I really used to enjoy chasing Camasan points.
So did you go was you going to Cudmore because you knew you was guaranteed the 50 attendances or the 50 peggers, or was you going because you enjoyed the venue?
Both.
Yeah.
Both. We always used to get, in them days, they used to get 50 to 80 at Cudmore. But then I'd go on a Super League match maybe the next day, and we'd have 80 anglers. Or then I'd be on a Winter League and we'd have 100 plus anglers, and then you'd have the practice matches for your Super Leagues and your Winter Leagues, and there'd be 80 or 100 anglers. But I just used to love going to Cudmore.
Yeah.
It was, but I've not been there since when they used to have the international Fishermania matches.
That's right.
And I used to be the coach for the Dutch team, believe it or not.
Is that right? Brilliant.
Yeah. But that's how I started, I suppose, with my international coaching for the Dutch national team.
Yeah.
Before I ever started doing it for the England team. It's very strange.
Well, how did they adapt? Because when I think of Holland, I think of those big rivers with big bream and big roach and whatnot, not fishing a commercial. So, how did they adapt?
It were very different for them when they came over here, to be honest. It's different in Holland now. There's a lot of commercials. They're growing at a quick rate. And they've got a lot of anglers that only fish commercials.
Right.
But when we used to fish these international matches, how long ago was it now? 7, 8, 9 years ago. They didn't have so many commercials, so they needed a coach to teach them. And I was obviously good friends with Jan van Schendel, and he asked if I'd help him with the coaching. And a couple of times we were on the podium. I think we came second twice as a team.
You can't argue with that. I take it was England were the winners. For chance.
Yeah, always.
Yeah.
They've got so many good anglers. You see people like Alan Scott or Will Rays and Bishop, Steve Hemingway. They're really good no matter what venue they're on. And when you get a day or two's practice, you soon learn. But the Dutch team were very, very good. Very good.
Fantastic. I didn't realise that. I didn't realise you'd spent so long on that commercial scene chasing those Camazan points. So what happened then? Was it when that competition disbanded that you decided to focus a bit more on naturals?
Not particularly. I think I was still with Trentmen when I virtually stopped overnight going to commercials because every Saturday and Sunday I sort of got a big match on a river or a canal.
Ah.
And when you'd like doing it for 6 months and you don't even think, I'll go back to Cudmore. You just think, when's the next river match or when's the next canal match? And they were big matches, 80 pegs, 100 pegs.
Yeah.
And it was every Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah.
And then I don't know, within the last 10 years, in the winter, we have all the silverfish matches on commercials. I thought, I'll give this a go. And I did quite well. I had some success, and a lot of them were quite local for me, and I started to enjoy that. Not the travelling, because when I was younger, I used to go all the Welland, the Witham, the Thames, the Nene, every Saturday and Sunday, like Gold Valley and places, and even the Huntsville and that, and long distance drives, and then all of a sudden, I've got matches on my doorstep, and that's why I like the River Soar now. I'm ever so local to it. And we have our winter leagues on there. We have, you fish where we're next year.
It's lovely. 4. Yeah, it's a lovely water, it really is.
And they've got another teams of 8 on it this year, as well as the teams of 10 winter league. And I'm thinking, I'm really enjoying this.
Yeah.
And then I just stopped going to commercials. But I'd still love to go back and have a go,
Well, I've seen you at this birch house near you. You've been posting there on social media with these 40-pounder skimmers on these matches. Lovely stuff.
Yeah, 30-something pounds my best weight, but I normally get like 27, 28 pounds.
Nice days.
I think I've been second in the last 3 matches, but I'd never seen the venue until this summer. And that's my local venue for only 5 or 6 miles.
Yeah.
And there's a local angler. His name's Gary Rogers. He runs a lot of matches now on the Trent and this birch house, and You know, and he lives in Burton on Trent. Well, he's from the Burton Mutual Angling Association, and he's getting their match scene started again for local anglers, and it's thriving. You know, there's a lot of people doing it, and it's just something I enjoy. You know, a Tuesday match on a local venue.
Yeah,
getting to bite every cast from a skimmer.
What's the stamp on there? They look sort of 4 to 6 ounce. Yeah,
this small. You know, you need 60 or 70 fish for £20.
Busy day.
This week I had 80 skimmers for £34. You know, a bit better stamp than normal.
Not bad, eh? Not bad on a commercial water.
No,
Tuesday.
I'll take you one day.
Lovely. I'd love to, Darren. There you go. We'll hold you to that. Yeah, no, brilliant. Good. Well, that's opened my eyes a wee bit, and it does make sense how you organically sort of fell out of it, because you're getting these big river matches that just sort of happen to be taking up your weekends, and it sort of fell out of it, I guess.
We did have a decline though in the turnouts on commercials. Do you know what I mean? It was like
the more that open, the more the anglers get thinned out.
Well, maybe there's so many venues though, so people think, oh, I'll try this new venue, or I'll try that new venue. Then all of a sudden, there's not so many there, but there was a big increase in like natural water anglers at the same time.
Yeah,
you know, so and like the Trent is massive nowadays, but a lot of it's to do with the access. You know, you go to Burton Joyce, you go on the tidal Trent. I know. Newark, you park at your peg as well. That's what people want.
I joined Newark this year for that very reason, because I was floating around on a couple of different clubs on different stretches, and then when I thought Newark's the nearest water to where I live, and every stretch you can, weather permitting on some of them, granted, but near enough every stretch, in good weather, you can park behind your peg. Absolutely, it just opens your eyes up. What do you say to these people, and you've sort of alluded to actually a minute or two ago, but when you said just do what you enjoy, but what do you say to these people that say about, natural fishing is proper fishing, and commercial is
I don't agree
a
with
load of rubbish?
No, because I've done it all. Every type of angling is very, very skillful. And I don't just mean match fishing. I mean, you get into your carp fishing, your game fishing, your sea fishing.
Yeah.
But in match fishing, you've got feeder fishing, pole fishing, waggler fishing. But every part of it, whether you're fishing for carp or whether you're fishing for bleak, the best anglers will always be the best at it, and those who put the most time in, and the most practice and the most prepared. Everything is so, you can make it as skillful as you want to be. Yeah. But you can just turn up on a match and still win.
That's the beauty of it, isn't it?
I think anybody can win.
That's the beauty. It's just, the reason why I ask, I've seen some weights the other day that were pretty crazy. It was down at a water down in the southwest called Todber Manor. And
I've seen that.
Yeah, the weights between sort of £450, £500. Now that's not for me. More to the point, I couldn't be arsed, to be honest.
I've never caught that many fish.
No, I couldn't be bothered. I'd just be too knackered. I'd be, it's just too much for me. But I can't take away from the skill that's necessary to put that type of weight together. I wouldn't knock it. When you look on the social media and you see what people, it's not fishing, that's just hook a duck and this, that and the other, and I don't know, I think those comments are unfair.
It is unfair, because to catch 400 and 500 pounds of carp, you have got to be very skillful. You don't knock anybody who catches 20 or 30 pound of bleak or 100 pound of chub, who have probably caught more fish than these carp anglers. Yeah. You don't knock them. Everything's skillful, and each to their own. It's whatever you enjoy.
I agree.
And that's what puts bums on seats and people on the bank.
Yeah, and money into the industry and protection and all the rest of it as well. I agree. Okay, let's track back a little bit then, back to the team fishing and back to Starlets a wee bit. So we've said you're the captain of Starlets with Mark Downs being the manager, if you like. And I guess that is now replicated with England in some respects, as he's the manager and you're now assistant, if you like, or the coach of the England team. How did all that come about? Was that a case of, again, organically you was well known as the captain of Trentmen, so you was in a good position to take on Starlets, or how does that work?
Yeah, well, I was. I'd been the team captain with Trentmen, and I joined Starlets in 2010, like I said, and we won the Trent National in the first year.
Yeah.
And we obviously fish a lot of team matches together with Starlets. You know, we used to have Super Leagues, Winter Leagues. We fished the Sensas Challenge. We go abroad to France every year.
Yeah.
And Mark has a lot of responsibility with the England team. And I'm sure it was one of these times when he'd be away on international duty and he'd probably ask me to select the team or, you know, sort an hotel or whatever. Yeah. And all of a sudden, it felt like I was doing it all the time. And I never ever was officially asked to be the captain or take over anything, or, you know, it just happened. It just grew on me. Yeah, and but I accepted the responsibility and the role. I always say Mark is still the manager. It's still Mark's team. He's had it since he was a youngster,
young man.
Yeah. But you know, it's not a big deal for me to pick a team or book a hotel or debate or, you know, decide on tactics. Whatever you do as a team captain, I can take it in my stride. You know, but I do ask for help off other people as well. You know, you do need to delegate occasionally.
Can you start seeing then who would take over from you? Do you see those skills in people?
Yeah, I'd like to think so, but at the moment, I feel like I'm stuck with it in a way.
I'm just wondering, because you would naturally sort of, you know, you spot talent in terms of picking a team. Do you spot the same talent for organisation, tactical now?
Yes, people help you. Like even some of our newest standards, like Lee Wright, who you interviewed the other week. Yeah. He could be a team captain at Starlets in the future. Mm-hmm. But what you have to remember is a lot of people don't want to do it. You know, like everybody's got other responsibilities in their life. You know, they've got stressful jobs. You know, they've got young children. Some people that they might even have rocky marriages, or they're too loved up and they don't want to do anything. Yeah, you know, so it's not something that I mind doing. If you don't.
How do you go about? We're starting to go on tangents there now, which is great because you're answering stuff and then questions are popping in my mind. So this is good because now I'm thinking, how do you go about dropping someone? How does that work?
Do you know? No, we don't have as many team matches now as we ever used to. My main problem is not dropping somebody; it's begging someone to fish in the team. You know, when we fish on the River Soar Winter League, it's teams of 10. Everybody likes to do their own thing, and I don't knock them for that. You know, people want to fish the River Wye Winter League. They might, individual, or the Rivers. I don't know, other River Trent matches, or they might have a commercial league. You know, so sometimes I'm having to like beg people. I have to like cajole them. I sometimes have to shout at them and tell them they've got to fish. You know, everybody's different. So in the club team fishing, you know, it's not such a big problem. Obviously, for a big match like the National, where there's a lot of people practicing, you do have to drop people.
Exactly.
And to be honest, I would always pick the phone up and speak to them and say, you know, I've picked the team and you're not in it. And I'd explain why. I'd have a good reason. Some people say, you don't have to tell them, but I do like to tell them.
Base it on practice.
Pardon?
Do you base it on practice?
Well, it depends on the venue you're on, doesn't it? Because you do have some really good experienced anglers, especially in Starlets. Like probably most of them, or half of them, international anglers.
That's what I mean. How do you go around? How do you tell someone like Sean Ashby's drop?
It's not a problem. It's not a problem with Sean, but some people are more delicate. So you do have to put a caring arm around people sometimes, and you do have to be really, really nice to some people, and like I say, you have to swear at other people and be a bit harsh.
Yeah.
Everybody's different. It's sort of like man management. You got to know the personality of the person.
Yeah. And I guess with over the years, from the Derby through to Trentmen, and now it's second nature, and everybody has that respect for you as well.
Yeah, I hope so. A lot of people won't as well, but especially other teams. It's like they always used to say about Mark Downs, didn't they? Love him or hate him. They used to have the Angling Times used to give you box stickers for that. I love Mark Downs. Yeah.
Oh, crikey, yeah. I'm sure it's water off a duck's back for him as well. You've got to have thick skin to do the job that he does. No, it's interesting.
I think you're right there. You must have thick skin sometimes.
Yeah.
But even team captains, sometimes they can have the delicate moments. It's like everybody suffers with a little bit of stress, don't they? And pressure in their life.
Yeah.
But as like I said, I don't seem to mind pressure. I can handle it.
Well, that then brings me on to coming right up to recent times, the whole England setup. So, tell us how that came about. So you mentioned about the Dutch tutoring, if you like, and Cudmore for the Fishermania International piece.
Yes.
It developed from there.
I believe it developed from there. When Mark first asked me if I'd help him to coach, it was actually on the banks of the international match at Cudmore for Fishermania. It was to go to France with the under 23s at the time, and he only gave me a few days' notice, and I couldn't get any time off work at all, so I had to decline.
How do you manage that? How do you do all these commitments, team fishing, your own individual fishing, as well as having a full-time job? It must be tough.
It is. I work for Rolls-Royce, and I get some time off with what is known as international representation.
Okay.
They can give me a week to go away, one country or another country. Because I still have a family, and I still go on family holidays as well. But match fishing does take up a lot of my time and my whole year. Because when I'm not match fishing, I'm actually thinking about it or preparing or organising. So like
you've got a good missus as well, then, that's for sure.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, Mrs. Bickerton, I call her.
I think everyone that's at the top of their game has to have a good woman. Definitely. But so okay, so works. Is helpful. Good wife, good family.
Yeah. So Mark asked me officially for the first time if I'd go with the under 23s in 2016. It was. I'd only been on World Club Championships prior to that. I actually fishing myself. Once when we won the Trent National in 1992, we fished the Ostellato Canal in Italy.
Yeah.
That was with Nottingham District Federation of Anglers. I also fished with Starlets when we won the Trent National in 2000. It must have been 2012 we won the Trent National, because it was 2013 we went to the World Club Championships on the Canale Gaian in Italy, in Veneto. So come 2016, we actually went to Carouche as I was the assistant coach.
Portugal.
Carouche in Portugal, the Ria Saraya. 2016. And we had a great time. We got the tactics absolutely perfect.
Is it still all sticky mag and all those tactics on there, or is that all changed?
No, because it was all sticky mag and barbel on the waggler.
Yeah.
And while we were there was so many Carrassio moved into the match length, and we've got a method to catch them on the pole, with ground bait and sticky mag. Mm-hmm. And like it was a pole match, and on the first day we won easily, and on the second day I think we come second, a point behind the Italians, but we won the World Championships quite convincingly, and we had the individual world champion with Alex Clements, and that was my first time coaching. Yeah, and I got a gold medal, so I was well chuffed. I thought, this is easy.
I love some of this. How did you take it? How did you work out it was going to be a pole match? Did you work that out pretty quick?
No. It's a 4-man team in the under-23s. It's the under-25s now. So you only get 4 days training. And on the first 2 days, we weren't very good. We thought it'd be some barbel on the waggler, an odd barbel on the pole. And then we noticed other teams catching Carrassio. But the feeding was so important. And we just nailed it on the last practice day. And we were so confident, but sometimes, you can be too confident, and we thought, oh, this is easy. Yeah. And come match days, it actually was. Yeah. We all had to stand on the podium, and the Queen was blasting out, "We are the champions." And we've all got a gold medal around our necks, and then we have to play the national anthem. It is absolutely amazing for anyone who wants to get into that style of fishing. Any youngsters know all that, or any older ones really who fancy a crack at any type of international fishing.
Well, I have a theme throughout these podcasts. Pretty much, not all, but 90% of them have an international theme to them, because in my eyes, it is the ultimate accolade. I would swap a 50 grand Fishermania check to represent my country any day. So it's just one of those things that's cropped up. But I think it probably started because on episode 2 was Tommy, so it was just a natural thing to talk about when he won, and it just spiraled from then. I did a podcast with Rob Hughes, and we ended up talking about, obviously, carp fishing, international fishing, and it just spiraled from then. I mean, for me, probably the best one was chatting to Ian Eaps, because it's just something magical about that era and the way that he won his gold medal. And so, I mean, I get sort of goosebumps just thinking of what you just said. The national anthem's blaring, you've got your medal around you. He must have been proud as punch.
Oh, unbelievable! And I've actually been on 10 world and European championships now, including 2 I fished individually as a world club championship. Yeah. So in a few years, I'm just seem to be doing everything. But I really do enjoy it, and I love the work. The prior preparation. And it's very, very hard work while you're away. People might think it's glamorous. It's not glamorous. It's very, very hard work. But the rewards are there when you do well.
I want to pick your brains then on something here now, because it's something that I'm covered off. There's another section of this podcast called the Press Pack, where I look at what's going on online and in the magazines and whatnot. And I'm going to cover this off where I think some very, very unfair comments. So the England feeder team has just been to France. They were only given like 2-3 days notice to get out there with all the kit, obviously then to get the bait ordered and prepped and everything. And to be fair, and Dean, as the manager, has held his hands up and said we got it wrong. Fair enough, but they have been bombarded. They've been slated online by, I don't know, keyboard warriors, nobodies. I'm not sure. But what you've just said there is that the preparation, the hard work that goes into it. I mean, can you expect a team to just turn up 2 days before been told 2 days before to turn up and do really well? I'm not too sure.
Oh no, it's difficult, isn't it, when you haven't got that amount of preparation time. The team would have done the very best in the circumstances, obviously.
Yeah.
But what you do have to remember, I don't know where they come. I can't remember. Was it 7th?
Yeah, it was.
It was 15 teams and the 15 best feeder teams in the world. Mm-hmm. It's not given anymore. It is difficult to win abroad, in international fishing. On a lot of venues, it don't matter whether you're the feeder team, the veterans team, the youth team, the nations team. Mm-hmm. You go to venues and you're fishing for fish that you never ever see in England. Some of the catfish you catch, the grundles, gobies. And
they're the ones where the spikes go in your hand. Yeah.
Yeah, poisson chat. You're fishing for fish that you don't catch in England and you never fish for. And so, some of these teams, they'd have had a week extra practice than the England feeder team.
Yeah.
And it's a very, very fine line there between success and failure. Everybody is getting better and better. And it is harder and harder to win. It's amazing when you see some of them.
Yeah, you've seen these Eastern Europeans and
unbelievable.
The Germans as well, and the Hungarians. The way that they've come on over the last 10, 15 years is crazy. So, what about the facts that we lack matches, whether it be float fishing or feeder fishing, for those SIPS rules here in the UK? Do you think that that's got merit and we should be having more events like that?
I think it makes a massive impact and detriment to the international teams. We should have more of these matches, but and Bloodworm and Joker, there is availability, but it's where we could stage them and how many people will turn up. The biggest match of the year, really, I would say, is the Sensas Challenge final.
Yeah.
That is, it's been traditionally on the Gloucester Canal for the last few years.
Yeah.
It's a challenging venue. It's a fair venue. Mm-hmm. There's lots of people catch very little, but there's lots of people that catch a lot. But it's very, very technical fishing, mm-hmm. For that kind of championship. People love it. A lot of people say to me that is the highlight of my year. Obviously, we haven't had it for the last 2 years because of COVID restrictions. But this year, or next year, should I say now, it's always in end of March time.
Yeah. It
should be on, hopefully. But yeah, we do need some more of them matches. Years ago, I'd fish bloodworm every weekend in the winter.
I did as a kid. It was standard. It was a given. Go to my local tackle shop. Yeah, I'd say to them on a Monday, I'd ring them up, say, give us a match pack of bloodworm and joker for the Saturday, ready for Sunday. It was a $5 for the two. And it wasn't unaffordable. Everybody used to think it was really expensive.
No. That is a myth, to be honest. I believe, because for your price of your bloodworm joker, if you was going on a big canal match, you might take half a kilo of worms, a couple of bags of ground bait, a pint of casters, a pint of maggots, and
that's 20 quid.
And it's no more expensive. £10 worth of bloodworm and joker is often enough for a match. I still fish it Allcroft in the winter. I love going to Allcroft now, catching skimmers and roach. And you need very little bait, bloodworm and joker, to get a good weight. And they're popular matches as well. People do love that. And there's but maybe 20-something teams of 4. So it's 80-something people enjoying this bloodworm and joker fishing for 6 or 8 rounds in the winter.
Yeah, and that's what we need more of. Back to the point around the international scene, I guess it's a tricky one, but I think the more that we can try and get these events, then it obviously puts us in good stead. Nothing we can do about those species, absolutely. You know, we're not going to all of a sudden get a load of these Vinbers and all the rest of it over here, but certainly in terms of using the baits and feeding in the style that perhaps the Continentals do. In fact, that's an interesting line to go down. Let's talk about bait a little bit, because it's well known that Continentals have been using and mixing ground baits and additives and things like that for, nigh on 50 years. Do you think we're still way far behind? I mean, obviously Sensas Starlets are sponsored by Sensas, so you use a Continental ground bait style. What's your thoughts on our bait knowledge over here?
Well, that's correct. We are sponsored by Sensas, and I use Sensas ground bait all the time. But I'm a firm believer in keeping everything very, very simple. There's not many ground baits that I actually use. Like if I want a very light ground bait, I'll use surface. A medium, I'll use, say, lake, and an heavy mix, I'll use river. And you can mix them all together and get a good consistency.
Yeah.
I think people worry too much about what ground bait they're using. Maybe sometimes the colour's important, but for the same ground bait, you can mix it so many different ways. You can have it like very dry, very wet, or medium, and you can make it do what you want. And I'm not too sure about additives in a way. I think some people worry too much about what they are actually using. And it's simplicity is the thing for most match fishing.
Shouldn't that detract away from the... Yeah, of course, yeah. I mean, I'd say the same with additives. If it gives you confidence, then use it. If not, then, don't bother. But do you think that worry detracts away from the presentation, from the actual approach to the match?
I've never worried about it myself, to be honest, because I've never been in a situation where I'm not happy with what I'm using.
Yeah.
But like if your ground bait's right and you're happy with your presentation, then you should be catching fish, shouldn't you?
Yeah, of course you should.
So.
No, it's interesting, and I just thought I'd ask, because it's always, it is levelled out that sometimes the feeding and the bait shoes and that knowledge of mixing is an advantage to the Continentals as well. Yeah,
feeding is very, very important, probably more so than presentation. Because if you've not got the fish there to feed you don't matter how you present it, does it?
Exactly, yeah.
But with the international style fishing, with your initial mixes, it's often more about how much soil or lean you put in your ground bait, or how much joker, or how many dead maggots and casters. It's quantities a lot of the time, rather than a special secret ground bait mix.
Yeah. I've noticed that as well. Whenever I read or watch any videos, whatever, Alan Scott, as an example, he measures everything in terms of his quantities. He'll use a little pint pot. Des Ship as well, he's the same. They're always using little, I'll use a pole cup, and I know that there's 250 mil of chopped worms gone in there. I know 250 mil of even like micro pellets. Even with their commercial mixes, everything's measured in quantity. It must have been that international practice, I guess.
Yeah, I actually measure everything.
You do as well.
When I was next to you on the River Soar a few weeks ago, I got 2 bags of ground bait, just put them in a boat, and I knew it took exactly 1.6 litres of water in one day to mix that ground bait.
Wow.
And I knew that if I needed 100 mil of casters and 100 mil of hemp and 100 mil of pinkies in that mix, and I got the 100 mil measure to do it. Because you can actually buy official measuring pots, you see. You have to use them on the World Championships. Some people have several sets, and they go from an eighth, quarter half, 3/4, and a full litre. And I think everybody should buy them. So when you're in a team competition and you say to your mate, "Oh, today I used 1.6 litres of water in this mix," and he can do it, and then you can say,
"Got it.
Well, I think actually that might have been too much water. Today we'll try 1.5 and make it a slightly lighter mix."
Yeah.
Rather than saying, "Oh, I added a little bit more or a little bit less." or I added a handful of joker, I can say I put exactly 250 mil in.
Very specific,
and then if you think it's too much for the next match, you can take some out. Because there's none of this handful of this and handful of that with me. It's all exact.
I'll have to, if I'm going to be a successful team angler, I better start sorting the measurements out.
Well, that's the thing about team fishing. You can tell them exactly what you've done. How much ground bait you fed at the start, how much joker you fed at the start, how many casters. You can't do that with guessing, can you?
Guessing? No, absolutely not.
And it saves a lot of work and time, and practicing. All
right, and so let's come up to, I guess, future plans, really. As you've explained where we're at nowadays and the type of angling that you're enjoying. So, and you've said you're enjoying the international stuff. So, what are the plans for Darran Bickerton going forward?
Oh, well, I do love team fishing. That is my main driver, whether it is with Starlets or with the England team. Mm-hmm. I want to carry on with Starlets, as the captain under Mark's management. Yeah. And at the moment, I want to carry on with the England team as the assistant manager under Mark's guidance. I think he's grooming me
in the best possible way, of course.
In the best possible way for when he retires, because Mark is actually quite fit for his age, mid-60s, and but he will not do it forever. And it is my plan or hope or wish that when he does retire, to be able to take over.
So could I be talking to the future England senior, the full England team manager?
I'd like to hope so. But if Mark ever did retire, I suppose the Angling Trust would do an interview type process for applicants. But hopefully I'll have a good CV to present and present myself to be the next manager.
Absolutely. So
we'll just wait and see.
We think there's probably a few more World Championships in Mark, I imagine, anyway. So
definitely.
This is all experience building up. So what's the plan then on this journey? So where are we for the England float fishing team this year? When you're going to be going next week, was it, did you say?
Yeah, the team will all arrive on Wednesday in Italy. It's on the Mincio River. It's near Verona. Mm-hmm. It's a big river that comes off. It comes out of Lake Garda.
Ah, yes.
Yeah, and traditionally it used to be very, very weedy and lots of chub. But Lake Garda has actually had a bit of a problem in the last year or so with weed. They've been trying to kill the weed. Mm-hmm. Which has also killed the weed in the river, which has made most of the chub disappear. So, it was touch and go whether we were going to use the Mincio River or the reserve venue, a small canal called the Canal Bianco. But it is now definitely on the Mincio River. It's been very varied fishing, there'll be 7 metre bollow.
Bolognese rods, I'm thinking, big deep river.
Yeah, very, very clear. You can see the bottom very far down. There'll be waggler fishing, sliders. There should be some pole fishing. The local, the Italians have been stocking the river. Hopefully to make it a really good match. Because any time you go fishing in Italy, they want to make it a spectacle. Yes. They want to make it good for the fans. They want to make it good for their team, and they want to make it good for all the teams that are competing in the championship.
Fantastic. So, what do we think our chances are?
Well, to be honest, I mean the venue is actually open now, but the official practice day starts week on Monday. There's 5 practice days because it's a 5-man team, and the actual championship is on the Saturday and Sunday. So we will not really know what the fishing is like, until a day or two into the official practice. If it's really good fishing, I think it suits us. You know, the better the fishing is, I think we can sort it out.
So, who is the travelling squad?
Right. Well, the travelling squad is we've got some really experienced anglers, and we've got some young anglers as well that are coming through. You know, you've got Will Raisin, and he's travelling with Rory Jones, who Will's a world and European champion, and Rory is now the number 1 ranked under 25 in the whole world. You know, so they're travelling partners, and we've got Steve Hemingway. He's travelling with Sean Ashby, and Steve's a European champion individual, and Sean's a former world champion.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, and then you've got Matt Godfrey. He's travelling.
So really going for the young ones with Matt and Rory then, yeah. And he's with Alan, I guess.
He is with Matt Derry.
Okay.
You know, and like Matt's been like sort of I don't know how many times, at least 3 times, youth world champion.
Yeah.
And the other angler is Cameron Hughes. Oh, he is so amazing. He's one of the best anglers in our area, and he's still only 30, less than 30, I'd say, about 30.
Yeah.
You know, and his dad's travelling as well, Nathan.
Yeah.
Absolutely awesome angler, and Matt Derry's dad's coming with us as well, Mark, and there's obviously me and Mark Downs. There's no Alan this year because he's qualified for 2 big finals.
That's right. I remember he had a bit of a conflict as to which way he was going to go. I see.
It was, and I think it's Golden Reel or something, isn't it? Or
I think he's in a couple. I think he's Golden Reel and the Neighbour Match this. Yeah,
that's correct. That's the one. But to be honest, Alan decided, and it is still one of the most respected anglers in the whole world. But we didn't think we were going on a world championship, and I'm sure Alan never. You know, so
that's why he went into all these qualifiers.
Yeah. You know, and like with COVID restrictions this year, nobody knew what was going to happen.
No.
You know, even now, you have to self-isolate for 5 days upon arrival in Italy. But we've had an exemption from the Italian government as international sportsmen. Yeah. You know, so we don't have to self-isolate. But like, we often have a travelling England fan club. But at the moment, if they come, they've got to self-isolate. You know, and all the rules change on the 30th of August, whether it's for better or for worse. We don't know.
Yeah.
You know, so we don't know if we're going to have like the normal support on the bank, you know, as you'd normally get in a world championship. But there'll be many Italians on the bank.
Of course there will, yeah, for sure. I didn't realise that the team was so such a mixture of sort of youth and experience. That's really interesting. I know a couple of these lads have done, you know, some of the European bits and pieces, and I know Matt's been around the squad for a while, and Matt. Well, both Matt, should I say, Matt Godfrey and Matt Derry. But that's a really interesting sort of blend of youth and experience. So you're the conduit, because you would have had some of them lads, Rory, in your youth squad, I guess.
Yeah, Rory Jones. Yeah, he was in my squad, the England squad for many years. He started as under 15, I think it was, and no, it might have been under 16. He must have fished 8 world championships.
Yeah.
You know, and like Matt Godfrey's the same, Matt Derry's the same, Cameron Hughes is the same. They're all young ones, but they've got so much experience at the moment. And what you've got to remember now, with international fishing, you know, and it showed it up in Serbia in 2019, the last match that we fished, the last world championship we fished, because of COVID restrictions. You should have seen the podium. Everyone's 20 years old.
Wow.
You know, it's like the world champion, Alan Perko. I'm fishing against, he's fishing in the under-25 team. And Alexander Cordan from France. And there's another young one from France. I can't even remember who it was. Maxime Duchesne. You know, like they're all in the 20s. you know, like catching a fish every cast, you know, and it's got to help. Obviously, they're not as experienced as a 40 or 50-year-old, but it's some venues. Age is a factor, I think. You know, to have age on your side, you know, and it's a very, very tough environment. You know, a world championship. You know, with all the training and the preparation, and it takes it out of you. It does.
I can imagine.
Sure
I can imagine. Yeah, it's the mental strength. That's the physical strength. And I think that's probably where age does come in, because if you've got that experience, you can handle that pressure a little bit better. But like you say, physicality. If you've got to whack out 400 Blake, you know, there's no getting away from the fact that a 20-year-old is going to be a lot quicker than a 50-year-old. So, yeah, I'm really excited now to find out how we do, and under, again, strange conditions and strange circumstances, but as you know, and you'll be there, we'll be trying our best. So
we'll try and put some information on social media to keep
that'd be great.
you know, people informed of, you know, what's happening, and obviously we'll do all the results. So you can't go into too much about ground bait.
No, of course not.
Obviously,
I'll give the game away. But no, that's great. I'm really excited. I'm you know, big well wishes from me and all the best. And I guess really that is pretty much me done and dusted. But I did have one question from my old mate Tom, if you don't mind me asking you a question from one of the listeners. Yeah. And his question was, what does Darran think was or is his greatest achievement in angling?
Oh dear. I could answer that, and I often answer that to people by saying by enjoying it. You know, and I think that is really, really important. Yeah. You know, I have won some big matches. It's hard to say. I've won, like I said, I've won the Camasan British Open twice. Really big match. I've won an Evesham Festival. And the last good year before COVID, I even won a big festival in Holland. And the very same year, and this must be one of my proudest achievements, to be fair, as Starlets, we won the European Sensas Challenge final in France.
There we go.
128 teams of 4.
Wow. And
we won that quite convincingly. We've been like on the verge of the podium for 10 years, you know, like 4th, 5th, 6th place. And the last time we fished it, and we're still the current champions because of COVID.
Of course.
We won that. And as a team, fishing with all your friends, you know, it's Sean's in the team, Mark Downs, Steve Hemingway and me, team of 4. When you've tried for 10 years to win it, and you've been so close, then all of a sudden you win it. So it's not just about the individual achievement, it's the team achievement, winning with your friends. Yeah. And that, I think, is probably my proudest. And I've got gold and silver medals in world championships. And I think that is the proudest moment.
That'll do for me. Absolutely fantastic. What a great way to wrap this podcast up and the big chat. So just a final thing from me then, Darran. Thanks for taking the time out and going through where you came from and your team career. So what your plans are for the future. So thanks a lot.
You're welcome. I really enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
For all your fishing needs, be sure to check out Fishing Evolution. Boasting 2 floors of branded displays, visit our recently expanded superstore at Hadley Road in Sleaford, where we offer a huge range of tackle from all of the leading coarse and carp brands, such as Nash, Fox, Corda, Drennan, Preston, Guru, Daiwa, and many, many more. You can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram, where we share all of the latest news and updates about products available in store.
Okay, let's take a step inside to the tackle shed and have a little look at what's caught my eye in the printed press, on social media, across the web, and in my local tackle shop as well. And I have to say, it's probably going to be a little bit short and sweet is this episode, because there's not been that much that has inspired me really. But there's been one or two things, of course. The first thing being, in Angling Times this week, probably, I'm not too sure, but probably the most expensive feeder rod that I've ever seen, certainly anyway. I don't know whether it's the most expensive feeder rod ever, but the new Daiwa SLR range is coming to the market very soon, designed by that fantastic Daiwa team, headed up with the likes of Will Raisin. So the Daiwa Tournament SLR feeder range was launched a few years ago, apparently. I remember seeing the name about, but when we're talking these price points, it's probably not something that I dive into, but there are many people that would do, and why not? If you can afford it, my advice always is, buy the best that you possibly can. So if you've got a few quid and you want to spend this type of money on these types of rods, then why not? I just simply don't fish at the level where I would need to use that. I mean, I have got some rods. I've got an Arity feeder rod. I've got an old tournament 12, 13 foot jobby, and they weren't cheap, but these rods are ranging between 480 and 560 pounds, depending on which one you pick up. Max Sawyer gives them a thorough run through. I'm not going to talk about all the bits and pieces that he's it's a double page spread that he's reviewed, but the test verdicts at the end. So plus points: fabulously fluid fish playing action, high performance casting potential, suits all types of feeders and fish species. The downsides is a nice bespoke tournament rod bag that can hold a reel, would be nice at that price. And the quality of rod should come with 4 tips. So that's Mark's pretty much bankside test verdicts. He does go on to say as well, a stunning summer's morning, and it simply oozed class. And when you look at the alternatives in that price point, if you like, give you an idea. So for the 11 foot 2-piece SLR, which is probably what we tend to use commercials, you get 2 tips, 1.5 ounce up to 2.5 ounce, £490. SLR 12 foot 2-piece, a little bit more beefier, a bit more casting potential, 515, right the way up to the 14 foot, which is £560. And that comes in with a 2, 3 and 5 ounce quiver tip. So it's obviously, for those big tidal rivers, etc. But the pick of the alternatives, there's nothing in that bracket. The new Guru Aventus distance feeder rod comes in at 425. So that's still way off this price point. Free Spirit, £389. Preston Distance Master, £239. So yeah, this is in a league of its own in terms of price point. But the quality, you can't go wrong, in my opinion, with Daiwa gear. And if you can afford it, then why not? So that was the first thing that caught my eye. From the sublime to the ridiculous, really, is I mentioned many podcasts ago around I bought a 30 quid match rod, and I was very impressed with it. It was a Leader Concept GT. Well, I was scanning around on eBay recently and come across a reel of the same name. The GT Concept's a 4,000 size, and it was relatively cheap. I think I won it in the auction for about 18 quid. So I thought I'll give it a go. Let's see where we're at. Loaded it with my usual Daiwa sensor. I always use Daiwa sensor for my reel lines, for especially feeder fishing. £6 and £8, and I've not used it yet, but I plan on giving it a bash pretty soon. I may marry that up with something like a 12 foot feeder rod, maybe go down the river, do a little bit of maggot feeder fishing, something like that, see what crops along. So we'll see, and I'll let you know. But if it's anything like the rod that I picked up for, I think, $39.99, it'd be a cracking piece of kit. 5 ball bearings, well made, come with a spare spool. What more can you ask for? So yes, I will be giving that a try very soon. As I say, if it's anything like the rod I bought, looking forward to it. Something else that's caught my eye this week. So we have a new tackle launch from Matrix. Now, they've launched a lot of gear under the guise of Horizon X, which is one of the names of the range of rods that they produced. Now, I've already seen on social media, and I could have talked about this in the press pack as well, is there are some grumbles around the price points of these items as well. And I sort of get it, because compared to their traditional luggage and items, this is quite significantly higher. And I'm not too sure what the difference would be in terms of quality until I get my hands on it. So I'll speak to the lads down at Fishing Evolution when they get this kit in, which no doubt they will, and see if I can get my hands on, just to see why they're charging these price points. So as an example, they've launched a Horizon X pole hold all, which looks like a double hold all, top kit storage, 6 tube section, looks the part. It looks like a hybrid between a hard kit case and a traditional hold all, if that makes sense. Now this is coming in at £190, which is pretty expensive for a hold all, but I see what they're trying to do. They're putting 2 products together in one. And when you think that those hard cases tend to retail for about £120 each anyway, then I see what where they're coming up with. But the Horizon X bait system, which is basically an EVA bag on top of another one, £75. I'm not even too sure whether you get your bait boxes in there supplied. They should be at that price. We've also got the Horizon XL storage bag, which is basically a roller bag. Can get a couple of their matrix rollers in there. We're coming in at £70. So I can see why people are turning the nose up, but traditional Matrix fans are thinking that this is out of their league. But knowing Matrix as they are, they tend to launch a number of different ranges aimed at different price points. So the Ethos range, I always remember, was a little bit cheaper than the Aqueous range, etc. So it might be that that's the route that they go down. But when you take a look back and look at these new items, they do look a little bit pricey in terms of the luggage. A box there as well, limited edition, £750. A feeder tray, £120. However, there's a little range of rods. Ethos XRS, nice price points of around £140. Some nice new clothing, the 25k rated weatherwear. Pretty standard, £130 for the jacket, £130 for the salopettes. So that's nothing out of the ordinary. But yeah, I mean, take a look, see what you think. For me, no preference. I don't particularly have any Matrix gear anyway. But one thing I did want to highlight as well on this, and I'm not too sure whether people understand this, but do we know that Matrix and Preston Innovations are owned by the same company? I don't think a lot of people still understand that. So they're owned by a company, an American company called Rather Outdoors, and they made that acquisition not so long ago, towards the start of this year. So what you've got essentially is 2 brands that are, I guess they could cannibalize into their own sales, but I guess they want to keep those brands very separate. There is loyalty on both sides. You do get anglers that are loyal towards specific brands. I'm not really. I'll use a bit of everything. But I see why some people do, because they like the look of products for a start, but also they like the feel and they know consistency when they buy products from the same manufacturer. But let's just bear that in mind. For those of you that don't know, is that Preston's and Fox Matrix are owned by the same company now. And that might have something to do with why Jamie Hughes moved from, I'm only speculating, but moved from spotted fin baits to Sonia baits. Sonia baits are part of Preston Innovations. If it was me playing devil's advocate, if I was an owner at Rather Outdoors and I saw my star angler using products that are not part of my business and my chain, I would be asking why. And I'd be asking them to, rip up that contract with spotted fin and be using our products, i.e. Sonia baits. So that's, I can speculate that's what happened there, but who knows? Now, one thing I did notice in Matchfishing, page 66, quite interesting, is this little Preston Innovations, funnily enough, a little off-box side foot, it's called. And this is one of those products that I really like, and it is innovative, but I do not like the price. So essentially, it's a little side plate to use when you're fishing down the margins, and perhaps you have to swing around off your box. And once your feet come off your foot plate, all of a sudden you can become unbalanced and you struggle to hold your pole, or you're sort of balancing on your tiptoes is something that I do a lot of. But what this does is essentially allow you to add another foot plate to the side so you're not having those problems. Great little idea. I'm not too sure how heavy it is, what it weighs. Again, I'll ask the lads in my local shop, see if they're going to get any in so I can take a look. But with a price point of £100, for the amount of times that happens, certainly for me, I wouldn't invest. But I guess if you're fishing a couple of times a week, you're fishing down the margins a lot in summer, I imagine it would pay for itself pretty swiftly. So yeah, so not loads and loads to go on in the tackle shed this episode, but a couple of things that caught my eye, especially with the new ranges that are launched, and a couple of thought-provoking ideas as well. So that is the end of this episode. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed the big chat with Darran Bickerton. Just wanted to say a big thank you for everybody that's been listening and sharing and liking these podcasts. As I've said many times throughout these series, if it's not for people listening, there simply isn't a podcast whatsoever to do. And as long as you guys listen, as long as I can get the guests, then I'll continue doing these. I'm just a one-man band with a lot to say, up against some of these big tackle manufacturers who does something very similar to this also. So once again, thanks for listening, and tight lines.